Hi everybody, welcome to this new video for the GenAI Nerd channel. And in this video, I want to show you the data plugin in Claude Cowork because I think this plugin is quickly becoming a very interesting alternative for data analysis tools such as Power BI. And I've been kind of a power user of Power BI for a long time, but to be honest, it's not the most, I would say, user-friendly application. And I think actually a GenAI application like the data plugin in Cowork of Claude is quickly becoming a very viable alternative for a lot of applications. So what I will do in this video is to show you how you can install the data plugin in Claude Cowork, and then I will show you an example of how you can leverage this plugin to start creating fancy dashboards based on an Excel sheet. So let's get started. So here I'm in Claude Cowork, and how can you get here? So what you need to do is to download the Claude for Desktop application, and you need to have at least a Pro subscription. So that's like the $20 subscription per month. So then you can use Cowork. And here I'm now in my Cowork environment. So you have the chat environment, the code environment, now also the Cowork environment. And this is actually the place where you can allow Claude to communicate with documents on your computer. So actually here you have then to indicate in which folder the files are that you will allow Cowork to communicate with. So you have to realize that here you're now actually giving Claude access to your computer so it can read files, create files. So that's something, of course, that you have to be aware of. And so here you can clearly indicate which folder it can access for executing a task. And here on the left-hand side, you can enable plugins. So let me quickly brief on that. And so here we can kind of add plugins. Now I have already installed the data plugin. And so this is a plugin that Claude has created to make it easy to kind of analyze data. And if you download the basic plugin like I did, it will be kind of a collection of skills, and we can take a look at what kind of skills you then will have. And so here you can see all kinds of skills that will be automatically enabled with the data plugin. And for instance, what you can see is that this has, for instance, also an interactive dashboard builder. And so this is actually the skill that we will use in my example to build a dashboard. Yes, and so the data plugin is not the only plugin available. So here, if I go to plus, I can actually explore other plugins. So let me briefly do that. Yes, so here you can see that Claude has actually created already quite some plugins that you can use, like a legal plugin, finance plugin, enterprise search plugin. But so now I will actually illustrate the power of plugins using this data plugin that I already installed. Yes, and so as an example, I have here an Excel with data, economic data about the German economy. So you can see here, I have actually a number of sheets. So a sheet with the evolution of GDP over like the past 20 years, employment data, CPI data, import data, export data, and even some data about building permits in Germany. So quite a lot of economic data that are simply publicly available. And now I want to actually use Cowork and more specifically the data plugin to create a dashboard to kind of summarize some important trends that can be observed in these data. So let me show you how you can do that. Yeah, so now I'm back in my Cowork, and already here have kind of enabled the folder where I have stored these Excel data. And now let me show you the prompt that I will use. So I'm saying, look, create for me a dashboard that shows 3 important trends in the German economy using the data in the Excel. And then I give the name of the Excel document. Make sure to combine data from different sheets to identify insightful trends that provide a good illustration of the challenges of the German economy. Yeah, so that's what I formulate here. I use Sonnet 4.6. That's one of the more advanced models nowadays at Claude. And now I can just say, let's go. And now we will go into a different kind of interface here. On the right-hand side, you can follow kind of the progress of what Claude has been doing. And yeah, you see it now starts to think. And you see it's already running a skill. So now it's actually gone into my data plugin because it realized, okay, I need to analyze data. So I need to enable the data plugin. And now it's actually running a first skill to start creating a dashboard. And here on the right-hand side, I can kind of follow up what is happening. And now we will have to wait for a couple of minutes. And then normally I should find in the folder on my computer an HTML with an interactive dashboard. That's what is promised here in step 3, that it will build for me an interactive HTML file where the dashboard should be situated. So now we simply have to wait until Claude Code is ready with creating this dashboard. Yes, and so now it has finished analyzing the data. So let's take a look what it created. So it actually identified, as I requested, 3 different trends. And at first sight, actually, if you know a bit of the German economy, this seems to make sense. And now I should actually find in my folder an HTML file with the actual dashboard. So let me take a look. Yes, and indeed, you see now that I don't only have my Excel file, but now actually Claude added to my folder an HTML file with a dashboard. And now let's open the dashboard so to see what it has created for me. Yes, and here is actually the dashboard that has been created. And you can see it actually nicely for every trend has now already created, I would say, quite a nice visual, informative. So for the second trend and also for the third trend. So in that way, I think you can see here the power of this data plugin, where actually with one single prompt, I can now create already, I would say, quite advanced dashboards just by prompting. So I hope that that shows a bit kind of the potential of this data plugin. And again, this is just using one prompt. Of course, you could make it much more sophisticated by multiple prompts, but I hope that this can really show you kind of the disruptive nature of this new trend. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks for your attention. Bye.